We will be getting started here at 7:30 p.m., everybody. So thanks for joining early. Please share, like, subscribe, get the video out there. We always started a few minutes early just to get more people notified, get the link out there to people. But we'll be going live here in about 5 minutes at 7:30. 5 minutes, 7:30. Thanks for joining early, everybody. We're going to get started here at 7:30. Please keep inviting people in. We're going to have a great show tonight. We're going to go over all the bills being heard this week at our state capitol, at least some of the important ones that you can testify on. We're going to have a great guest, Representative Ryan Armagost, to give us an update on important legislation, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. So get started here in just a few minutes. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining, everybody. We're going to be getting started here shortly. Hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region, and welcome to our weekly legislative live stream. Hope everybody's doing well out there today. We got a lot to cover, a lot of important bills going through the state legislature this week, a lot of great opportunities for you to testify in committee hearings, and we have a great guest joining us at 8 o'clock, Representative Ryan Armagost. Well, Michael Vance, how are you?
I'm doing well, Brandon. How about yourself?
Hey, doing well. Also, thanks for asking. How was your week?
It was good in a lot of ways, also very terrible watching what was going on down at the Capitol this weekend. But I'm glad that a lot of people still have hope, and we're gonna win as long as we keep that hope alive.
100%. I can understand how depressed people are, how sad they are. People think the state is lost, but I don't agree with that. I'm going to stay here and fight, and I'm going to fight in Colorado till I die. This is going to be a free state, and we just need more people in the fight. The authoritarian leftists that control so much of our government really don't have as much power as they want you to think. They see what we do, what so many other people out in Colorado are doing, and they are worried about what's going on, worried about their power. But what do you think, Michael? Are you an optimist about Colorado?
I really am. I mean, in the immediate future, I mean, it might not look the greatest, but if we kind of, if we just kind of tuck our tails between our legs and just say, you know what? I'm not going to fight anymore. I'm going to give up. This is too difficult. You know what? Nothing's ever going to change. And that's what's been happening for the last few years. And until we really start to make a difference, or not necessarily make a difference, but as long as we don't stop fighting and get and start to work with our friends, our families, let them know what's going on, let them know the ways that they can actually fight. That's when we're really going to start to make a difference in Colorado. And it's not until we actually start doing the work instead of talking about doing the work that we're actually going to make the change. And I'm grateful for everybody who is doing the work, but there's more people that we can get on board. So, talk to a friend, talk to a family member, let them know what they can do instead of just complaining about what they can't do.
100%. Joseph in the chat says, don't give up the ship. Forest Mommy says, don't let the media games work. And I
That's
think that's
right.
so important because they say, oh, look, we had tens of thousands of people out here with us. We had to do this and this. And come on, it's so much of it's just marketing. So much of it is kind of just exaggerated. But like you said, it's the people who do the work that make the difference, people who put in the work. And the more involved people are in politics, they realize it's a small group of people doing most of the work overall. And this is on the left, this is on the right, this is at every level of government. It's very small group of people. So if you have an organized group of people, even if it's small, and you have a good common goal and some strategy, you can make an impact. And in one way, that's the only people who are making an impact ever throughout history is a small, dedicated, organized group of people.
Absolutely. And there's too many people out there that think, oh, I can't do this. I can't do that. I mean, I thought that for years personally. I mean, I wouldn't be in this position if I would have just given up. I mean, all it takes is for you to is for you to just say, "Hey, I can do something. I want to get down to the Capitol. I want to put my testimony in. I want to email a legislator. I want to go down there and I want to meet other people who share my similar viewpoint." And before you know it, you've got a real group of people who are really doing good things for Colorado and for our local communities. So I just want to highly encourage everybody to get down there and get active.
Definitely. And if for those of you watching who've never joined us before, welcome to our weekly legislative live stream. This is the 12th week we've done this, and we do it every Sunday night during the legislative session. We're going to start by going over some of the important bills being heard in committee hearings this week. Committee hearings are where you can testify, you can provide remote testimony from home, from your car, from work. You can show up in person, and at the very least, you can email and call your representatives, your senators, and it doesn't have to just represent your district. You call and email any of them across the state and get them notified about some of this important legislation and how they should vote in your opinion. So, Michael, let's ready to jump over to the slideshow here.
Let's go for it, Brandon.
Perfect, folks. So here we go. We have a legislative live stream going on tonight. 558 bills introduced. 558 bills, absolutely crazy. 100 legislators, how in 120 days, how are they supposed to properly understand, discuss, and vote on this legislation, do the research? It's absolutely impossible. But Michael, I felt like we're under siege a little bit here in Colorado. I feel like we're under occupation from a hostile government. So I went with a little bit of the military theme tonight, they put through the Wolverines up there from Red Dawn, because I think so many people here in Colorado are ready to fight back, ready to get involved, ready to have a voice. And let's get going.
Absolutely. I'm excited to get into it.
Awesome. So, folks, here's our agenda for this evening. We're starting now here at 7:30 with Bills of the Week. So, as I mentioned already, bills being heard in committee this week. 8 o'clock, our guest segment will start. That's Representative Ryan Armagost. Of course, we're going to ask him about the gun legislation, Senate Bill 3. Everybody wants to know that. And then go into some other, what I thought was interesting, some of this crime-related legislation and any questions in the chat. So, please get some questions in the chat. You get to interact with one of our state representatives. It's going to be a lot of fun. Then about 8:30, we'll get back to the bills of the week, trying to empower you as an individual here in Colorado to have your voice heard, to have an impact. And then towards the end of the live stream, around 9-ish, well, these are never exact, but around 9 o'clock, we'll go through some of the more important bills of the session, kind of give everybody an update. Maybe the bills aren't being heard this week, but you still want to know about some of these big bills out there. So, how does that sound, Michael?
That sounds great. There's a ton to get through. I mean, I'm still shocked that we've already seen 558 bills. And yeah, it's incredible to see what they keep on trying to shove down our throats. So, uh, excited to get into it.
Definitely. Yeah. Let's get into it. Let's see what's going on this week down at the state capitol. So, tomorrow, Monday, most people probably know there's some really important bills being heard. Senate Bill 3 is being heard on the House floor. There's a lot of other bills on the list. So the legislative leadership knows that it's going to be a really long day on the floor. Good. It should be a long day. One of the greatest things these Republicans can do is to stretch it out. If they're going to pass an egregious bill like Senate Bill 3, the Republicans need to make sure it costs them time, because time is so valuable down at the legislature. These politicians only have 120 days every year to pass all these bills. So if a gun bill like Senate Bill 3 can take up 3, 4, or 5 days out of their calendar, that is one way to win, one way to push back at the very least. That being said, there's not a ton of bills being heard in committee on Monday. All eyes are going to be on the House floor for Senate Bill 3 and in the state Senate. Stay tuned towards the end. There's some really big bills going through the state Senate tomorrow, this week. So we want to keep you up to date on that, but we're going to get to that towards the end, because you can't really testify in committee on those. You can still reach out to your state rep, your state senator, of course. But let's go ahead and hear bills of the week. Awesome. So let's start with Tuesday here. It is a bill we've talked about before, but I wanted to bring it up because it's just such an example of how the government picks winners and losers in society. This bill is being heard on Tuesday, March 25th at 8 a.m., Senate Committee Room 357. House Bill 1005. You may remember this one. Viewers out there, this is the tax incentive. So $35 million, 34 million, excuse me, $34 million in tax incentives to bring the Sundance Film Festival here to Colorado. I mean, it's such a disappointing bill. We have, unfortunately, Republicans who voted for it in its first committee. We have a Republican sponsoring it. And unfortunately, this is just a bad bill to bring in these out-of-state film festivals here to Colorado. What are your thoughts on this one, Michael?
I think it's ridiculous. I mean, not only is this playing favorites, but this is playing favorites to a lot of people that truly hate human liberty. They see they a lot of these people that we're going to be giving special favors to truly do not like Colorado. They don't really like a lot of the ideals that our state has historically stood upon. So there's no real reason for them to give these people a special tax break just so that way they can continue to infiltrate Colorado with their ridiculous ideologies.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, so many of these people behind these film festivals are not on the liberty spectrum, or not on the liberty side of the aisle. They don't care about freedom and liberty. So to reward them and try and bring them to Colorado, this little Hollywood Junior, not too happy with this bill. So, folks, you can speak out, you can get involved. This bill has made it pretty far through the process. It's passed through the House, has been amended a few times, and is now going to be in the Senate. So this is its first hearing in the Senate Finance Committee. So if you're interested in this one, you can reach out to the committee members, you can show up, you can speak out against it. But at the very least, this is one of those bills that people need to be aware of, because we care about our liberty, we care about our freedom, and we care about our taxpayers' Bill of Rights. And we have a state government here who's $1 billion in the hole, and they want to give $34 million to bring in a film festival. So, bad incentives, bad bad things from our state government there. So that's Tuesday in the Senate Finance Committee. Also Tuesday in the House Health and Human Services Committee. So this is upon adjournment of the State House. That's always a tricky time. It can be as early as 11 a.m. It could be as late as 1 a.m. It could be really later than that even. So you got to kind of keep an eye out for that one if you want to testify on any of these bills. But wanted to bring up Senate Bill 183. I know it's a controversial subject, but this is one that I think people need to at least be aware of at the very least. And Senate Bill 183 is the coverage for pregnancy related services. Now, most people seeing that are going to be like, "Oh, that sounds fine. There's nothing weird about that. Nothing strange about that. We want people to have coverage for pregnancy-related services." Well, of course, by pregnancy-related services, they mean abortions. That's 100% what they mean by this. If you remember out there, people, in 2024 election, Colorado voters approved Amendment 79, which repealed, many people weren't aware of this, but it repealed the state constitutional amendment prohibiting the use of public funds to pay for abortions. So, of course, now they have to have legislation that's going to go ahead and change healthcare policies for Medicaid reimbursement for abortion. So, people on Medicaid will be able to pay for abortions. People who are on the taxpayer dime are going to be able to pay for abortions because Amendment 79 passed. That was the game plan all along. It was nothing to do with anything other than that in my minds, and just wanted to bring this to people's attention here. What do you think about this, Michael?
I think from a libertarian perspective, whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, this is the real reason that we were against. This is the biggest reason that libertarians were against Amendment 79. Unfortunately, we saw it pass because we knew this is exactly what they were going to do. They were using it as an excuse to fund abortions. There's not an If there's one thing we do not need to fund in Colorado, it's abortions. But weirdly, uh, the left loves to find every single excuse to virtue signal abortions, and now they have the ability to pay for abortion, use our tax dollars to pay for abortions now. It's absolutely absurd. This is not something that we should be spending Colorado taxpayer dollars on.
100%. Very well said there, sir, and completely agree with you. Especially for Medicaid for something like that. So, um, there it goes. People can go in there and see how much it's going to cost. But 81,000 this first year, 367,000 after that. So there's going to be a lot of money going through the state legislature to pay these abortion providers, and of course, a lot of people, taxpayers paying for it. So there you go, folks. There's your state government there in a nutshell. So also on the Health and Human Services Committee on Tuesday, March 25th at upon adjournment, House Committee Room 112. So that's the first floor of the state capitol. A very interesting bill. Very disappointed seeing some of the bill sponsors on this one. Very curious as to the justifications, but let's dig into House Bill 1287. Social media tools for minor users and parents. Michael, what do you want to tell us about this bill?
Oh, this bill is just an excuse to use kids to strip you of your Fourth Amendment rights, your privacy. Uh, and at the end of the day, this is not excuse me. This is not the responsibility of the state or federal government. This is the responsibility of a parent. There's nobody that is able to protect a child better than their own parent. And this is just another excuse to strip parents' rights. At the end, if you look at everything going on inside Colorado, what they want to do is they want to strip the parent of their right to protect their children, to raise their children, and to be the one that actually cares, provides, and to them the biggest concern is the fact that the parent has control of raising the child and teaching them how to live, in particular, how to raise their child and grow them and teach them what is the best way to live as a human being when they're an adult. And that scares them the most. This is one step in that direction of stripping that right from the parents and placing it on the state itself.
Definitely. We see so often the tool of the tyrant is protecting children, right? You got to protect the kids. That's why we got to ban guns. We got to ban tobacco. We got to do all of these things to protect kids. We can't let adults have any rights because the kids something might happen with the kids. And this is another example of it. So check this out, people. Why is House Bill 1287 so bad? So check this out. This bill will require a social media company to implement an age assurance system to determine whether a current or prospective Colorado user on a social media company's social media platform is a minor. Now, how are they going to do that? Colorado does have digital ID, folks. Colorado has the My ID, Colorado taxpayer funded digital ID service. Look at this, requires a social media company to provide tools and settings for a minor user to control their own experience using a social media platform, requires a social media company to provide tools and settings for parents to support a minor user, specifies minimum capabilities for the tools and settings. So this is government meddling, forcing these social media companies to change their programs. Requires a social media company to take additional specific measures to maximize the privacy and security of minor users, and it goes on and on from there. Of course, folks, like Michael was saying, this is not the role of the government. Parents should be in charge of their kids. I get it. There's a lot of challenges with the new technology out there with phones and tablets, but nonetheless, this is just another attempt for social media companies to be the scapegoat for going after them because kids are being victimized online. So I think the idea that this social media company would be legally required to determine if users are minors, that's frightening for me because imagine if this social media company doesn't follow that. That's a deceptive trade practice, as it reads right here in the fiscal note. So these social media companies are going to be strong armed by our state government, forced by law to identify minors versus adults. Now, tell me, how are they going to do that unless they're using? I mean, the easiest way for them to do it is to require digital ID. I don't like that idea. I don't think anybody believes in freedom and liberty should like the idea that the state is mandating some sort of ID verification system for you to use social media. I mean, that's Australia, folks. That's the United Kingdom. This is Soviet Russia type style stuff. Bad news. Any other thoughts on this one, Michael?
No, I think you pretty much summed up my remaining thoughts. We just need to make sure that we can let our legislators know to vote no on this one. This is an absolutely egregious bill that is going to harm the rights of. This is not only going to harm the rights of parents, kids, but it's also going to come down on a lot of people who do love liberty, who I think are genuinely misguided, who support the bill, because this is going to be an excuse for the government to come down on people who aren't even parents.
Yeah, I mean, look at this civil penalty, $20,000 for each violation.
Hmm.
So, I mean, these social media companies, our attorney general's already gone after social media companies. We have people in our state government who want to sue Google, who want to sue Facebook, who hate these companies. They hate Twitter, of course. They hate Elon Musk. So, hey, they're going to put Twitter X under the microscope looking for these violations so they can take their money away from them at $20,000 a pop. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. It is not the role of the government to be requiring social media companies to determine who's using their platform. And then, of course, they're going to have to report this data back to the government. So, really disappointed in this bill. Unfortunately, we have good people on there like Jarvis Caldwell, Byron Pelton, and then some of the worst down there like Daphne Michelson Janae. She's absolutely a nightmare. Lukens has been at least somewhat receptive to some pro liberty stuff. But of course, when you get Republicans joining them on this is just bad news, folks. So if you guys know the bill sponsors, definitely reach out. This is a bill that should be opposed. I'd love to get people down there testifying against this bill on Tuesday. You can do it remotely from home, but please speak out against this bill. We need to let the Republicans behind this bill know that there's outcry from people in our state. They need to hear from their own constituents for sure. And then just do what you can, folks, because, yeah, this is a bad one. This is the kind of bill, though, that Jared Polis does hate. So there's a chance he could veto it. He's really cozy with the social media companies. So yeah, bad news there, folks. Bad news for sure. House Bill 1287. This is its first committee hearing, so it's brand new. So you probably haven't heard about it yet. There's another one we're going to talk about that does similar things, but there's a good opportunity to stop this bill. And really, we need to be questioning Jarvis Caldwell and Byron Pelton, asking them why they support um, the social media companies having to report on who's using their platforms. That's a disaster, folks. So both bills being heard Tuesday in the Health and Human Services Committee on the House side. Let's move on to the House Judiciary Committee. Always important stuff going through there. Of course, a lot of the criminal justice legislation. So also upon adjournment of the State House in House Committee Room 107, Now, this is a bill we've talked about a lot, but I really want to bring this one up. So notice how it says for action only on this under criminal asset forfeiture, House Bill 1067. So you cannot testify on this one. The witness testimony portion of this hearing for this bill has already been completed. So you can't speak on it, but what you can do, you can reach out to the members of the House Judiciary Committee and ask them to support this bill. You should call them, send them an email. If you have any questions on how to do so, please let us know. It's really easy. You can go to the legislature's website here, leg.colorado.gov, click into committees, find that House Judiciary Committee, and tell them to support House Bill 1067. This is such an important one. We know there's probably going to be amendments introduced on Tuesday. I'm going to be really paying close attention to this one because this is one of the best pro liberty bills we've seen all year. Michael, what are your thoughts on House Bill 1067?
I'm really hoping this one advances through committee. We've had seen the last few years, uh, this has not been able to. They have not been able to successfully get any form of civil asset forfeiture passed. So I'm really hoping that this is the year that we can really see us push through. I'm also really encouraged that we're seeing a lot of Republicans uh, uh, support this bill from a pro liberty perspective. I mean, particularly what this does to our Fourth Amendment rights. I think that this is going to be, I think this is, I think that there's a lot of encouraging signs with this bill. We could very well potentially see this one um, uh, cross the finish line inside committee and reach the House floor.
Definitely, that'd be amazing. I mean, to see a real civil asset forfeiture reform happen. So, for those who aren't familiar, House Bill 1067 basically eliminates civil asset forfeiture. It eliminates it and creates it as criminal asset forfeiture. So, talking to Representative DeGraff about this bill previously, he had mentioned that he thinks that civil asset forfeiture is eventually going to be thrown out as being unconstitutional, which I do agree with. I think that's a serious problem out there. So, getting this bill passed now would be preemptive. It would be very preemptive to stopping the courts from totally getting rid of this program, the whole idea of forfeiture in general. This would kind of get ahead of the curve, get ahead of it, and turn it into criminal asset forfeiture, which is what it should be. The government shouldn't be able to take any of your property, any of your money away from you unless you've been convicted criminally. Unfortunately, that is not the case now. There's lots of horror stories out there about people having too much cash on them and the police confiscating it. Bad news, they can legally do that under civil asset forfeiture. So civil asset forfeiture needs to go away. Criminal asset forfeiture definitely needs to take its place, require criminal conviction before the government can take any of your money. That's definitely how it should be. So great bill. Please reach out, folks. You can find those House Judiciary Committee members at the legislative website. Please ask them to support this bill. It is a gun rights bill as well. I know we get a lot of good pro-gun liberty leaders out there in the chat. And this chat is awesome. Just looking at the chat here, I really appreciate everybody in there. We have so many of great names in the chat right now. We will be taking some questions for Representative Armagost when he joins us here at 8 o'clock. So stay tuned, folks. But let's go ahead and jump into another bill. I wanted to bring this one up. I've heard the term do the crime, pay the time, and this bill would basically say that, if you're a juvenile that's been convicted in the justice system, then you shouldn't have to pay any of these fees, right? So this bill would prohibit the courts or the state from assessing or collecting any administrative fees, costs, and surcharges assessed against a juvenile who is under 18 years of age when the crime was committed and under 21 years of age when sentenced, or the juvenile's parents, guardian, or legal custodian. Now I get it. I mean that they're kids, but if they really have committed this crime and been found guilty of it, why should they not have to pay these fees and costs and surcharges associated with this charge? Where all of us who are adults would potentially have to pay those things. So I mean, it's a small example, folks, but there's so many of these small little examples of pro-crime, pro-criminal legislation that's just making it easier in reducing these penalties. I mean, this just makes it so that this crime is less expensive, right? And that's ultimately what it is. You're saying, hey, we know you committed this crime, but you were 17 years old, so you shouldn't have to pay as much as you would if you were 18 years old. Doesn't seem right to me on some level. What do you think about this one, Michael?
No, I agree. No, I completely agree with you on this one. There's no reason that somebody shouldn't pay just because you're too young. I mean, if you commit a felony theft, take somebody else's property, I mean, you should have some sort of punishment. And if you particularly if you steal somebody else's property, that means there should be some sort of fine or civil penalty because of everything that you put that individual through. It's you shouldn't be punishment free just because you're a juvenile. It's an absolutely asinine idea. That's the thing. I mean, libertarians historically are pro criminal justice reform. There are some egregious violations of our privacy rights, of our civil rights that happen from time to time with law enforcement. But guess what? There's also a lot of but that doesn't mean that we should go as far as as we are seeing from the left. Civil asset forfeiture is a perfect example of something that we can reform, but this is another example of the left going way too far, and that's why I'm grateful for a guy like Rep DeGraff who's coming in and bringing a very reasoned improvement to Colorado from a criminal justice perspective as compared to this. I mean, these just because you're a kid, that doesn't mean you get away with murder.
Right, definitely. Yeah. And Tony Exum needs to be careful. He's one of the top targets in the 2026 race there. I think that Tony Exum could easily be out of a job come 2026 during that election. It's one of the most winnable seats for Republicans in the state. I really do believe Republicans can easily pick up three state Senate seats. They need six to get the majority, but I think three is kind of a good starting point to really focus on. And one of those is Tony Exum. So pro-crime legislation like this needs to be tracked, and the senator and others need to be exposed come election time. I mean, that's part of the reason we do these calls is to get this information out there so the constituents, the people in these communities know what their legislators are doing, because it's so often that we don't have that information. But let's jump into the last bill we wanted to talk about for the Judiciary Committee here at House Bill 1031 on Tuesday. So check this one out. Really curious about this one. I know everybody in the chat really is fond of Chad Clifford, and I'm joking there. I know everybody does not like Chad Clifford. He's probably one of the biggest bullies down there. The guy has such a temper. He should not be a law enforcement officer. If you ask me, I've seen him explode in committee hearings. This guy is probably a danger. He's probably somebody that they need to blow the whistle on. His colleagues at the very least. So House Bill 1031 basically gets rid of the prohibition on whistleblower retaliation in law enforcement. Now, it'd be very interesting to see what Representative Armagost says about this, because I'm sure he has a different perspective. So maybe we ask him. But nonetheless, generally speaking, without getting into the details of the bill, would say that, people who are whistleblowers, people who are exposing corruption, exposing misdeeds, and reporting on criminal behavior should be protected. We need more whistleblowers in our society, especially when it comes to the government. There's this thing called the blue wall, a lot of people say, where, law enforcement doesn't report on each other, and maybe having somebody who be a whistleblower so they don't have to face as much negative things could help get this information out there. So interesting stuff. This bill has been in the news. It's something that's been pushed back a few times. They're finally going to be hearing it this Tuesday. We'll see if that changes. I'm sure there's going to be amendments. It'll be very interesting to see how this one plays out. Generally speaking, I love the idea of more whistleblowers in the government and them having some sort of whistleblower protection. But I don't know all the nuances of this bill. But what do you think on this one, Michael?
No, I mean, I on its surface, I could see promise with this one. As you said, I'm concerned about Chad Clifford. Chad Clifford is definitely has one of the worst temperaments of any rep down at the Gold Dome. I don't know if you saw it or not, but there at one point in time during the Senate Bill 3, uh, not Finance Committee, it was the Judiciary Committee, correct? Senate Bill 3. He was cross-examining Ian Escalante of RMGO, and he decided it would be a good idea to threaten Ian with um, putting him under giving him a oath, if I remember correct. Wasn't it? Was that what it was? He
Yeah,
decided
they were
he threatened
right.
him by putting him under oath.
Yeah, Chad Clifford going after Ian Escalante, executive director of Rocky Mountain Gun Owners. because Chad Clifford cannot possibly believe that he's got pro-gun constituents. To him, it is absolutely out of the realm of possibility that they would sign a petition. So absolutely ridiculous. But we do have our guest joining us, Representative Ryan Armagost. Thank you for joining us this evening. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Thank you guys for having me. How are you doing?
Doing well. Doing well. Perfect. Yeah, we got a great active chat tonight. I know people are lining up some questions for you, and we're really excited to have you here. First off, I'll go ahead and get started here. Big question, Senate Bill 3. Got to applaud all the efforts of the House Republicans this last Friday. It was amazing watching the testimony. I loved hearing what everyone had to say, just fighting back, bringing up these talking points, really pushing back against the narrative about this bill. And it was really good to see a valiant effort for sure. Thank you for all the work down there. But can you give us a little bit of insight about how everything went down last Friday?
Yeah, I think the main thing was just the frustration from everybody on not knowing what the bill is, and it was no fault of anybody that sat and heard it in any committee because it changed and morphed completely from every committee that it was heard in. So it started out being, a simple ban on semi-automatic and magazine-fed firearms, and then morphed into now what is pay to play, where you pay to purchase, get your FOID card. It's the funding has been moved all over the place. The responsibility of who's going to be issuing cards and doing background checks has been delved all over the place. So figuring out where it was and then finding out what we have to debate, I think that was a bigger tactic of theirs too, just to confuse everybody, just to try and confuse the system to try and get this through in horrible policy and horrible procedure. So we took all the amendments in. We brought our own amendments, and we fought just the committee reports because of how confusing all the committees were. We fought the committee reports for over 7 hours. So it was a good long day of debating, and I can't call it civil discourse, but it was a good long day of debating and trying to do as much as we could to the bill and drag it out as much as we could till the end.
Rep Armagost, thank you for coming on. Appreciate your time once again. And I'm flabbergasted that this bill has got to the point where it is. You would think rational Democrats would realize that this is not a good bill. It's not properly thought out. This is a complete, not only on top of that, this bill was completely changed once they realized that they did not have a passable bill the first go around late night in the Senate. So my question to you is, with everything going on from this bill going from just the judiciary in the Senate, then getting passed, going over to the House, going through the judiciary, then finance, then appropriations, and you have all that mess. Does this bill, what is stopping this bill from getting, first off, do you think Polis would actually sign this bill if it does get passed on Monday? And then if it does, what are the odds that this disaster of a bill gets struck down in court like that?
Well, to your first question, initially this bill would not have been signed by Polis, but with all of the amendments that came onto the bill, those were all his ideas. Those were things that got it to a place where he can like it. Um, and unfortunately, I mean, for him, this is still something that would, if he was to sign this into law, would ruin him in any political endeavors that he has beyond this. So I can't see him, even if he got these amendments, to put it in a place where he likes it. I can't see him signing this into law and expecting to have any sort of respect or recognition beyond negative recognition moving forward. The other part of this, this is such an overreach. This bill has been more egregious than any other bill Colorado has seen, probably any other state has seen. So this is a giant overstep. I think this is something that will immediately get national attention. If it does go into law and we do start moving those monies around with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, we will get an audit. We will get our federal funding shut down from U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So that's $27 million a year that the state would be doing without if that money shuts off. And simply tampering with the money that they're giving us violates the agreement for that grant. So we would lose that immediately. And the scariest thing I heard was in Judiciary Committee when the bill sponsor himself, one of the bill sponsors, said it should not affect. And they don't even know. They're just assuming because of their lobbyist or whoever's putting this in their ear. They're assuming this is going to be okay, but it's not. This is something that we're spending money on something that is unconstitutional. So this will get attention from Department of Government Efficiency, but this will also get attention from the Pittman Robertson grant money that we're getting. So we will get attention. I think it will be shut down one way or the other. Hopefully, it doesn't have to be something long and drawn out like a constitutional challenge. It can just be immediately shut down through the higher powers that have a say in what we get for funding and money.
Yeah, it's frightening stuff for sure. And I think, you both brought up a good point that if Polis does end up signing this bill, I think it's kind of a sign that he knows he's never going to be president, that he's going to like, okay, I'm throwing in the towel. It's just not going to work out for me. So I'm just going to do what I want, or, expose his authoritarianism, and the pretend libertarian mask fades away.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody had a question here in the chat I thought was interesting. We saw one of these amendments, and we saw this bill's such a mess, right? There's so many questions about what this bill actually does. But somebody asked, would 30-round magazines that are currently grandfathered into law, right? It's illegal to buy them now, but you can own one that was prior to 2013, 2014, whenever that took effect. But there was some nuance with this bill that potentially would have outlawed those grandfathered magazines in. Is that still the case, or what do we need to know about the grandfathered magazines?
Yeah, that's a good question, because everything in the bill states 15 round or less magazines. So the only exemptions would be the hunting rifles, which could be 10 or less rounds. But everything in the bill that we tried to amend stated 15 or less, and we tried to put it amend the language to 30 round standard capacity magazines, and got shot down, pun intended. But yeah, it was not, as far as the ARs are concerned, the way this would be sold, it's still going to be essentially the same as it would be in Colorado. It would be 15 round or less magazines that would be affixed. So somehow epoxy, however they were trying to get that accomplished.
Rep Armagost, when it comes to excuse me, when it comes to the Senate, or it's not the Senate, House, you're in the House, you guys are going to be voting on this tomorrow. When it comes to the House, are there any potential vulnerable seats that you could potentially see swinging from a yes to a no?
Yeah, I was honestly surprised. I know there was some hostile turning over the weekend, and prior to that, that people were going to be stated they were likely to be a no vote, and now might be a yes vote because of the way they've been treated. So there's just a lot. I think if we can talk to the people that are in vulnerable seats or in districts where they can definitely get more pressure from constituents, or simply just it's not something they believe in on principle, there are people that can flip. I just think that there's something suspicious about this bill, that there is some kind of pressure that people are getting. People I never would have expected to vote the way they did on Friday when we had recorded votes on Friday. It was surprising. So between the governor's office and the lobby, I'm not sure who it is, but there's somebody putting pretty strong pressure on these Democrats to make them vote the way they already seem to be voting. I would say there are probably 3 votes that we might be able to flip out of a total of 5 that we need to get the bill killed. If we were to get those 5 votes flipped, it would be pretty impressive. But I just know there's 3 that we can possibly flip. Shannon Bird is one of them. We did get Clifford and Marshall. If we can get maybe Jackie Phillips and Tisha Morrow, there's some of those that need to be voting properly for their district that I think will definitely be succumb to a lot of scrutiny if they vote against their district.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of money in gun control. I mean, we see millions of dollars poured into the state every election from these Bloomberg-funded groups, whether it's
Yeah.
Everytown or Mom's Demand. So I mean, it's big business. Gun control is big business, just like so much of this abortion is big business. It's simple explanation in my mind, at least. Money has a lot to do with it. Um, so I think, we've seen two things, right, Representative Armagost? We've seen like kind of this attack on law-abiding gun owners, which isn't new. It's been going on for a long time. But on the flip side, we also see these pro-crime, it seems, I can't think of a better word to describe them, but pro-crime Democrats in the state house and the Senate passing laws to make life easier for criminals. So we have, these criminals getting more, less severe penalties, more benefits. It's becoming a little bit easier to be a criminal in Colorado. And then on the other side, you have the pro-gun, hardworking, just average Coloradans who are just trying to provide a good life for themselves and their family are being penalized and our rights are being taken away. What can you tell us about this whole pro-crime or pro-criminal mentality we're seeing this year?
Yeah, it's definitely an incredible balance of disarming law-abiding citizens and making them disarmed victims while arming and enabling criminals to not serve any time in jail or prison, to not have to pay any consequence for any crime, violent or not, that they commit, making even sexual offenses probationary offenses, and letting people out on probation for violent crimes that are repeat violent criminals. Chief Noller with Pueblo Police Department put it best on the incident where he just had his 3 officers shot. Luckily, they were able to kill the subject that ambushed them. But that criminal himself was a repeat offender. He was out on bond for all these other crimes. He had weapons charges, firearms, felon in possession of firearm prior to this. This is just something where this guy should not have been on the streets. But it's a telltale sign for Colorado's legislative. I don't know what the ideology or strategy is to simply keep criminals on the street where they can live their lives in criminal life. They aren't hardworking. They are criminals. They are working at the easiest way they can by victimizing other people and taking what's theirs. This is something that is coming to light and has over the past few years has become so blatantly obvious that we bring it up in every hearing that we have, but especially in judiciary. House Judiciary is stacked with social justice activists. There's 1 or 2 attorneys in there, nobody with any criminal background in legal work, 1 public defender. It's just the ideology of people that are passing or blocking bills that go through Judiciary Committee. And essentially, if they get out of there, they probably are likely to become law. But the people arguing, the people debating in there are just activists. It's nobody with a responsible, ethical decision-making ability for judiciary-based mindset to get these bills through. It's people that are pushing the wrong ideologies through. And it comes down to this, just a criminal enabling wave that we have. And the only way to thrive in this state from those people acting in those seats are if you're an illegal immigrant or you are simply living a criminal lifestyle, or both.
All that sounds incredibly depressing. It's really sad to see what's going on in the state of Colorado. So my question to you, Rep. Armagost, is what is the best way to bring hope to Colorado considering our current state of affairs? Because I, for one, am sick of the blackpilling that's going on right now.
Yeah, I think people that are just tired of politics and take a step back, they don't, they throw their ballot in the trash. They don't participate in anything. They're tired of what's going on, or they're just flat out leaving the state. People are not digging their heels in and saying, okay, I've had enough. People like me that are natives of Colorado, growing up when this was a red state, it turned a purple state and it became a purple state for some time before now it's just a flat out blue state. We have to turn it back to some sort of level of stability. We have to bring the purple back in this state to be able to help balance out just common sense and reason and logic and ethical morals, everything that we need in this state that has gone to the wayside simply to put criminals and people that aren't willing to put in the effort to make things better, they're putting them first. We have people that are constantly getting taken care of. Tenants are always being taken care of before landlords are. The consumer or the government is being taken care of before businesses are small businesses, especially fees go down. Everyone's paying so much money to either hold their business alive or hold their house up with the family. It's just become such a horrible state to live in for the idea of you have to pay to play, and everything that you do here in this new Senate Bill 3 is just a perfect example of all of that on one other perspective on gun control. So everything that the state is doing is trying to shut down your ability to do things on your own and have to rely on the government, creating that nanny state, as my colleague Rep. DeGraff always says. It is. It's exactly that. It's a nanny state that just has to hold the hand of every citizen in the state to be able to simply get by. The liberty-loving Americans, the freedom-loving Americans, are sick of it, and in Colorado, they're being chased out. And those of us that are still here, we have to dig our heels in. We have to get our word out, especially when it comes time to an election year. We have to vote these people out of their seats. We have to be able to get reasonable people in these seats, even Republican, Democrat, whatever it is. We have to get the activist socialist Democrats out of these seats so that we can get some reasonable conversations in our capital.
100%. Couldn't agree with you more. And I really appreciate what you said about the nanny state, right? That's this whole idea of these authoritarians, in my mind, what I would call them. Other people call them Marxists, people call them communists, call them what you will, but they have this mindset that they can manage our lives better than we can manage our own, right? They can centrally plan society to how they think it's going to work out best. That's this whole trust to this science, this idea that they can micromanage everybody's lives, take these guns away from these people, but let these criminals do these things. And I mean, it's just a disaster, right? Socialism always leads to a bad place out there for sure. But a lot of people out there, Representative Armagost, I'm sure you've heard it or seen it online, but they talk about recalls. Now, don't get me wrong, I started getting involved back in 2014. I volunteered for Rocky Mount gun owners. That was kind of the birth of my activism on the pro-gun side. I volunteered. We were down in Arvada working, trying to get Laura Woods elected, and flip it. The recalls were able to flip those Senate seats and return to a Republican majority. So it was a really great time, right, to get Republicans back in the Senate and push back against all these Democrats who were taking away our gun rights back then, over 10 years ago, hard to believe. So, of course, it's a bright spot in our history, and people think back to how great that was. But a lot of people now are still clinging on to this idea of recalls. What do you think? What's your perspective? Do recalls make sense, or does it make more sense to focus on the 2026 election because it's really just around the corner? What's your thoughts there?
I'd say both. I mean, if it's a matter of having the money, there are seats that you're just not going to be able to recall. We tried that with the governor. We know there are certain people that just can't be recalled. Same with Secretary of State. It's just there are some that I think can get the attention that they need to flip a seat or get a seat vacated. But otherwise, it lets somebody know you're on the chopping block come next year, no matter what, for that next election. So. Whether it be the House or Senate districts, the other part of that is we have to get Republicans to run for seats, even if they're unwinnable. We have to fill seats. We have to fill all of those levels of our elected positions. Every single one of them, no matter how unwinnable it might seem, we have to get somebody in there to be able to get out there and speak what our values are. Because if somebody's just hearing their echo chamber, they're going to vote their letter no matter what. But we just have to start getting those seats open and getting vacancies filled that way. But I think having somebody running unopposed is unacceptable when we're trying to make sure that we have a general election where we can potentially win and flip seats.
Leading off of that, if we're trying to flip seats, we want to make. I mean, I think everybody's goal generally is we definitely want to even up the playing field, so that way we've got very competitive seats, very competitive House and Senate as well. Because right now everything, as you said, it's so blue. It's not even purple anymore. And if we can make things at least purple, we've got a better future for our state. If we are able to get to that point, what is the best way to rectify a lot of these horrible bills like Senate Bill 3 here in Colorado going forward? I mean, can we just run some some clean repeal bills, or will there be a little bit more nuance involved?
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to have something close to a split chamber to be able to repeal anything successfully. Uh, I would dream of that day. If that day were to come, we definitely have a lot to repeal. But the only way to stop them is also stability. But honestly, the less activists that we have, the less extremists that we have on the left that are pushing these ideas, the better chance we have of people that are just going to shake their head and say, I can't support that." And we saw that the last couple of years. We got the first assault weapon ban killed 2 years ago in House Judiciary. Last year, it got killed in the Senate. This year, it's going to be going back and forth, and I don't know when or where we can end it, but I'm hoping it will end before it gets signed into law. But it keeps getting further and further instead of getting drawn further and further back. So I'm hoping we can get a lot more of these activists out of these seats, get some reasonable common sense people in there and help push common sense legislation. But I think getting the federal help too, just to keep states, I know President Trump's been signing things into order to try to protect and defend Constitution in the states that are pushing on constitutional bills. So hopefully we can have something all together from federal help and just inside our capital to be able to shut these down before they see the light of day.
That's a great point. Yeah, a lot of, like you said, a lot of these Democrats are not necessarily ideological. I'd say the majority of them are just the go along to get along politicians. They want to be elected. Sure they're Democrats, but they're not the far left socialist types, right? You just have
Mhm.
that small cadre of the activist types. So getting those out, replacing them with some more moderate people, and then also chipping away at their majority can make a huge impact that people don't realize how much of an impact that could make, right? You don't necessarily need to win the majority back overnight, but just chipping away at it and flipping some of the more extremists. Uh, Representative Armagost, I know one of your signature bills this year that you ran last year, the penalty for theft of firearms was killed last year, and this
Mhm.
year it made it out of the Judiciary Committee. So, can you tell us a little bit about House Bill 1062 and some of your efforts there to go after criminals?
Yeah, I literally brought back a copy and paste version of the bill that I ran last year. So it is word for word the same exact bill. I just had a little bit different tactic over the interim of trying to get support on the bill from the Democrat side. The majority leader was willing to jump on there as a co-prime sponsor, which is surprising with all the horrible anti-gun bills that she sponsors and supports. And then the governor supported it. So I think that helped get it out of judiciary. Besides the fact that the judiciary's makeup this year was a little bit different, and that helped a little bit as well. But that's the biggest obstacle that bill had. Now the biggest obstacle is appropriations because it did create a fiscal note because it does raise stealing a firearm to a felony. So there's going to be a multi-million-dollar fiscal note to it. We got it down some, but we're still going to have to do some creative work to get it implemented later so that it doesn't have a fiscal note this year. Because if we were to pull the bill or postpone the bill indefinitely and try to bring it back next year, we might not be able to get it out of judiciary again. So this is kind of that one time where we got it over the biggest obstacle that we didn't think we'd be able to. So now we need to make whatever amends we need to get this bill through. So I was told early on getting this bill through both chambers successfully would take a miracle. I said challenge accepted. And so far it's looking like it will. We just have to work it into appropriations at the appropriate time and in the appropriate way so that we can make sure it has the chance of getting out of there and out of the Senate. And it'll be good. Governor supports it, so it'll definitely get signed.
So I think it's really interesting that you've brought this bill in the past and it failed. This year, you're seeing a lot more success.
Mm-hmm.
Over the last couple years, we saw something similar with the assault weapons bans, where first, I guess you could say the first 3 years, where we had an assault weapons ban and they wanted to, and we were able to kind of kill it. And I want to say in some ways we killed this assault weapons ban in the Senate this year because they had to change it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it was going to die.
Yeah.
So my question to you is when you do bring bills back year after year after year and you finally make those breakthroughs, what are you able to do to make to change people's minds so that way you do see something that you are passionate about actually make it through those hurdles.
I think it gives you time to have those conversations because when you just introduce it, a lot of people in these committees don't see or read the bills until the day of hearing it in committee. So they have no idea it exists until it comes up in front of them. And for bills like that, and other bills that are somewhat controversial to the other side, it's it just takes conversations. Once the idea is introduced to somebody, they just see one little piece of it, and in this case, it's the felony. People see prison time when they see this bill. So talking to them and bringing the facts, bringing statistics, and then bringing feelings into it, because that's how we appeal to Democrats anyway. Numbers don't matter, feelings do. So bringing those feelings out, the victims that are, have been victimized by somebody with a stolen firearm, anything like that, just being able to bring more to the conversation, have more time and resources to do that. Not going at it the same method you did the year prior and expecting something different to happen. That's insane. So just trying to do the best thing you can with what you've got, but changing your pattern, changing your route to get there. You definitely have to do work to continue doing it. Just raising the same bill is going to get it across. So different tactics, different strategy is the only way really to have forward momentum, as we've even seen with these assault weapon bans, like you said.
That's a great point. You got to mix it up. When what you're doing isn't working, you got to change that strategy. And I think that's what so many of the liberty community here in Colorado, so many of the things that we need to realize, changing the strategy up. You talked about, a lot of these legislators don't know the bill until it's in committee. They don't even know it exists. And that's part of the reason we do these live streams because the people out there don't know, right? There's so much, over 500 bills going through the state capitol this year.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see an excessive number, and so few of them make media coverage. So, what are we missing, Representative Armagost? We've talked about the gun bill, some of this crime legislation. What are some of the other big issues that are happening this year that maybe people aren't aware of? You're down there, you see it every day, but those of us on the outside, what are we missing? What do we need to know about what's happening down there?
I think the biggest thing is just there's a lot of work with what it seems like trial lawyers. There's a lot of work with fees. There's, and then letting people say that getting overcharged for their eggs is because the the business is doing it to you. So now you can sue the business because your eggs cost too much, rather than blaming the government. There's fees for everything, and we keep making these fees, and which are taxes, but they call them fees, so it's less offensive to people. But just paying attention to what they're doing and where they're directing the blame, they're turning the blame of what we are doing and they are doing in the legislature by destroying business and small business in Colorado. And then when the consumers are complaining about their paycheck or the cost of living, cost of food, cost of everything else, they say, "Oh, well, that's the business that's doing that. That's not us. We're just holding the businesses accountable, and they're raising the price and sticking it to the consumer," which is not. The businesses will go under if they don't pass the cost down to the consumer that the state lays on them. So there's a lot of that that's been happening this year. A lot of business related strikes on people and tenant related strikes. Landlords, we've been turning the language on landlord attacks. Everything in the legislature attacks landlords. Those, in a lot of cases, are, again, small business owners. Those are people that own that as a source of income. They own a property as a source of income, and the government puts so many regulations and restrictions on them that those costs that they have to pay goes down to the consumer as well. And then the consumer is so overprotected, it just forces those landlords, those small businesses, out of business as well. So they can say affordable living in one hand and then say, however, we're shutting down those businesses that are offering you that. And then they won't let people build that mid-level condo style house anymore. So it's a lot of double speak. It's entertaining to watch if you are able to tune in or come to the Capitol more often, just to watch what's happening in the legislature and the debates that are happening. There's so much double speak, double standard, and just hypocrisy and irony. I hate using the word entertaining because it's not entertaining. It's very frustrating, but at the same time, it puts you in disbelief. So I would encourage people to pay attention to that.
You bring up a great point. I think it's interesting. I don't know how much you're paying attention to what's going down in Argentina with Javier Milei, but he slashed rent control, got rid of rent control, and it did something unique. Not only did it double the amount of available rental properties for people, but it also cut rent prices in half. So people who were struggling to survive, struggling to live, find a place to live, they were able to actually find places to live and find something that was more affordable for them and their families. So I think that's very interesting that you brought that point up because rent control only hurts families who are struggling to survive. And that's what we've been hearing for the last few years from the Democrats is how much they care about the little guy. They care about the small families who are absolutely struggling. Yet it's their own policies that are actually doing the harm to those same people they claim to care about.
Mm.
Uh, you know, I wanted to ask you about one thing you brought up a little bit ago. And that was new approaches, new strategies. I was wondering, do you have any tips for people who are going to testify in committee? Is there anything unique or different that we should be saying? Should we be trying to, because we have such a left-leaning legislature, resulting in a lot of heavily leftist committees? Should we be how should what would be the best approach to meet the to speak about these bills that we care about? Should we be coming in there with a just straight liberty message, or should we be trying to craft our message to mainly the left so that way we might be able to hit them where they're at and pull them our way?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I always tell people, especially when it comes to the firearms bills and coming in to testify on those, when we're constantly talking about Second Amendment, we're constantly talking about constitutional rights. We beat the same drum, and some people don't hear that drum. Some people refuse to hear that. So the level of education, the level of influence that the Constitution has on the left is minimal. So we really just need to focus on feelings and how something applies to you personally as a family man, family person, as a business person, business owner, whatever the case may be. How it affects you personally is going to be the most appropriate thing to keep you from saying something that falls on deaf ears. I think getting to be heard and just simply this bill is atrocious because this is what I need to provide for my family or my employees and my business. However, it is that directly impacts you or could directly impact you. But they have to hear the fact of what the state is losing out of it as well. My friend is moving out of Colorado here in Berthoud with his firearms manufacturing business because he's constantly being attacked every year, and that's revenue that they're chasing out of Colorado. That's business that Wyoming is going to get. That's revenue that Wyoming is going to get. And just it's sad, but that's what they want. So while he's saying that, he has to bring it to a personal level and say, everything I've done for my family, I have to uproot everything and take everything with me on the personal level rather than I'm taking my firearms business out of Colorado, because there's some people in the background that are celebrating that while the others are thinking, wow, that would suck. I may not agree with what he does, but I would hate to have to uproot my family and move them to another state simply to survive. So putting it on a personal perspective, how it affects you, getting the emotions into it is the way you're going to have something really hit the eardrums of the people on the left.
And that's a great point. I think that that's so important. I'm really glad you brought that up. And not just talking to the legislators, but even talking to the voters, right? Trying to
Mm-hmm.
spread the message of what's happening at the legislature. Somebody in the comments here, taxed said we should be crafting our message to the 65% of the electorate that is checked out of politics altogether, but are paying hand over fist for groceries because of inflation. Kind of the similar thought process. We're not saying, oh, they're violating our constitutional rights. We're saying the people are being victimized. Look at the emotional stories of individuals suffering under this legislation. So I think that's a really good point there you brought up. One last thing on last Friday, Senate Bill 3. Representative DeGraff, of course, was told to cover up his RMGO sticker, and then told to cover up his post-it note. This is shall not be infringed on it. And then Representative Bradley was kicked out because her profile picture had the president on it, the current president of the United States, not somebody, not some, it's the current president of the United States, as
Yeah,
if he had the
not a
picture of Jared
campaign
Polis
year.
there.
Yeah.
Right. Tell us what went down with that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, we had to hear about that on the leadership level. Just it's not in the rules. It's simply a decorum rule that is proposed by the majority leader. So if she says something needs to change, we need to change it. There is a rule that you are not allowed to have any kind of political or organization related material or campaign related material on display in the well. You can have it at your desk, but not in the well. And so with Rep DeGraff, he's been told that before, but it is something that it isn't necessarily in the rules. It's just an unspoken rule from the majority leader. Same thing with Rep Bradley. I just said we'll deal with it later, but for right now, if you want to stay on the board, just switch your picture and let's work on it later. But it's being worked on. It's just, yeah, those things are. My girlfriend was there. She had a end gun control something or other on her shirt, and they made her go out and turn her shirt inside out to come back out on the floor. So yeah, it's what it is. It's something we just have to debate outside of the chamber to maintain what we have of our First Amendment rights and our guests' First Amendment rights as well.
When it comes to situations like this, that little clip of DeGraff commenting about why he had to cover up his RMGO sticker it's going viral now. When situations like that arise, is there any heat that the speaker has to take? I mean, is there any pressure that she's feeling right now, or is it, haha, I got away with calling this offensive?
Oh no, it definitely creates more debate, both in the back room while we go back and have to fight these things out. But if we're stuck in a debate on the floor, it's typically one of those things where we're going to talk about this on Monday. We're going to address this next in our next meeting. But yeah, when it gets social media attention, I think that's something that definitely brings that heat on the speaker and on the majority leader for making those rules to basically stifle First Amendment rights.
You also saw something slightly similar happen on Friday. Uh, I don't know if you saw this or not, but Rep. Pascal was
Oh,
coloring on her little iPad, just sitting there coloring away while people were fighting for their gun rights.
yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. I know Chad Clifford was messing around on his phone too. Um, I'm just kind of curious what happens in those situations because it really looks like these Democrats don't actually care about you and what they're planning on doing to you with the authority of the state government.
Yeah, absolutely. If my constituents were able to get video of me playing on a device, playing a game or something while we were debating, even if it was something that I didn't have a game in a dog in the fight, she may not have a dog in the fight, but she should be paying attention to the most egregious bill that was getting pushed through legislature and debate. And she's sitting there, the giant iPad, clearly visible, obviously from the gallery. Somebody got some good video of that, so that was entertaining. But yeah, that's something that she will probably have to answer to her leadership for, but also her constituents. That's what we elected you to go down there and do. That's shameful. But yeah, it's 4 months out of the year where you can at least pay attention to what you're doing for the days you're there doing the work that the people sent you there to do.
Well said, sir. Well, lots of good comments in the chat. Thanking you for your hard work. Jody Nickerson says, thank you, Representative Armagost, for 9 a.m. to 9:45 p.m. for the 3 fight on House floor. Watched all day and night. Emily Rose, thank you so much, Representative Armagost. We appreciate your efforts to fight for us. Thank you. A lot of other good comments there. So really appreciate you taking the time. It's the thick of things down there. I know you got an early day tomorrow, but anything you'd like to wrap it up with here, Representative?
Just thanks to everyone that's been out there supporting, everyone that's been reaching out to their legislators. It is important work behind the scenes. It is the people's house where your voice needs to be heard. You need to be there to testify for all the people that are able to make it those long days in person or on Zoom testifying, it is important. It helps us, keeps us charged up as well. So please keep up the fight with us, and keep throwing those emails out to your legislators. Keep them going, and keep them held to the fire. I appreciate you all.
Thank you
Awesome.
for
Well,
everything.
yes, thank you so much, sir. Really appreciate it. Please keep us up to date. If there's anything people need to be aware of, anything we need to get out, any other bills, anything else, please let us know.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
All right. Take care. We'll see you down at the Capitol. Take care, Representative Armagost.
All right.
Awesome. That was a really good information. Really appreciate him taking the time to join us. And for people who don't know, he's in leadership this year. Representative Armagost is the minority whip. So his job in leadership for the Republican caucus is to rally up his members in the caucus and get them to vote one way or another on bills. So that's important because that's a lot of his work down there this last Friday with all the amendments and getting everybody out there and trying to rally the troops there. So happy to see that 100%. What'd you think about that, Michael?
I thought it was a great conversation. It was fascinating to hear what was actually going down on the House floor, especially on such a big bill like Senate Bill 3. I thought it would, and I also thought he had a lot of great insights on what we should do as a community when we're speaking down at the Capitol.
100%. Yeah, really appreciate this insight that we get every week with these legislators. Really cool stuff. But don't go anywhere, folks. Don't go anywhere. We have more to share with you. You ready to jump back into the schedule for the week, Michael?
Definitely.
Awesome. So, folks, we're all about empowering you, giving you the information to be a liberty leader here in Colorado. As somebody was saying in the chat earlier, we need leaders, we need people to show up. It does make a difference, it does help. So, stay tuned, people. We're going to go through the rest of the schedule for this week. So, we were just talking about the law enforcement whistleblower protection. That's being heard this Tuesday in the House Judiciary Committee. But let's go ahead and move along here. So, this is Tuesday. These are important bills, folks. These are bills you may not have heard of. The media is not covering them. So we want to give you the information to be empowered, to get to know what's happening in our state capitol here. That I wanted to ask Rep. Armagost because the gun bill, there's other big ones taking up all the attention, but there's so many other things that are slipping through the cracks, so many other bills, and that's what we're doing here tonight is to give you that information. So I want to tell you about Senate Bill 141 being heard this Tuesday in the Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee, LSBA. So that's across the state capitol. It's a different building across the street, but a very interesting bill here. Now, two Republicans, so don't know how far it's going to get because you really need to have a Democrat on the bill, unfortunately, for it to pass anywhere because they have this super strong majority. But what's interesting is this bill would create an exemption for municipalities with a population of less than 2,500 residents from having to adopt and enforce an energy code for residential buildings. That's right, folks. Our Soviet-style state government has energy codes for residential buildings. Now, that's probably not surprising to most of you. Probably seems reasonable to a lot of you watching, and you probably not seeing that as something strange at all. But nonetheless, we know how these things work. They start with one requirement, then it multiplies, then it gets worse and worse and worse. So I wanted to bring this up because it is a good bill. It is a good bill, I would say. It doesn't cost any money. They don't spend anything. Basically, just reading the summary of the legislation, and you'll see us click into fiscal notes here during these videos because it's such an easier way to understand what happens. It says current law requires municipalities to adopt energy codes that meet certain standards, which phase in between 2022 and 2026. This bill exempts any municipality with a population under 2,500 residents. So you think housing is expensive now, folks? Going between 2022 and 2026, the time period we're in right now, they have a short amount of time to get all these energy requirements updated for residential property. So, unfortunately, another example of how the government has overreached in our lives, but a good bill. I'd love to see Senate Bill 141 pass. It's a small carve out, but it's one that makes sense. What are your thoughts, Michael?
No, I completely agree. I'm glad you brought up the one size fits all government, that Soviet style system. It's these people don't have any thought or consideration for local communities, small town communities where they just don't have the resources. Even if they wanted to do something like this, they don't even have the resources to pull off a energy code requirement for residential families. I mean, we're talking about homes, we're talking about people's barns. I mean, this is the places where people live. This is an absolutely absurd bill. This should not have ever gotten to the point it ever did. I'm not saying, oh, sorry. The original bill was an absolutely ridiculous bill. It should have never been passed. And now this bill has to be introduced because you can see, I mean, this at least made it to, third reading pass and it's in the House, but I'm hoping that, and I really hope that we can get down there and we can get somebody down there to support this bill. But what I do want to say is it should never have gotten to this point. These people don't understand exactly. Um, these people don't understand what is best for small town communities. They have their own ideologies, and then they want to shove those ideologies down everybody's throat at the expense of what is best for other people.
Yeah, and this is such an interesting bill too because it's primarily driven by Republicans. It made it through the state Senate, so it shows you that a lot of Democrats. We were talking about this was with Representative Armagost. A lot of these Democrats are relatively moderate. So there's 12 Republicans in the Senate, and there was 19 people who voted for this. So you had 7 Democrats join the Republicans to pass this bill. Of course, a lot of them represent those rural communities that are affected by this type of regulation, and then 13 the Democrats voted no. So very interesting there. But yeah, actually a good bill that looks like it's going to pass. It made it through the Senate. Now it's in the House. But just wanted to bring this up to people. It's not the most earth-shattering bill. There's a lot of big stuff going on this year, but nonetheless, an important example of what's happening down the legislature. So let's jump over. I wanted to bring up this regional planning roundtable commission because, Michael, you hit the nail on the head a few minutes ago talking about the top-down approach that these legislators have, right? There's a state level hubris that they have down in Denver where they say, hey, we're so smart here at the Denver Capitol. We're going to tell out every other community across Colorado, regardless of the size, the shape, the makeup, the region of the state it's in. We're going to tell them what to do about how to plan their communities. We want this centrally planned society that works out for everybody. And it's been a disaster. It's been a disaster to try and force Boulder, Pueblo, Greeley, Fort Collins to be all exactly like Denver and then numerous mountain towns. So House Bill 1198 is one of these bills. Three of the worst legislators we have down there. Kyle Brown, Mr. Pronouns himself, Meg the Frolich, the little troll there, the little frog lady that sponsoring the gun bill, and Faith Winter, who of course showed up drunk to a community meeting, town hall type of meeting last year. Not to disparage these people, but they often deserve it because they are so authoritarian. But House Bill 1198 would create a regional planning roundtable commission within DOLA, the Department of Local Affairs, a 15-member board of 2-year terms. So here's another level of government, folks. This is that little commissar, this little bureaucracy they're setting up, and they're going to figure out how to get local governments to comply with the state level policies they're pushing. And if you want our state money, if you want this federal money, then you better do what we say. And that's what this whole thing is about. So, these types of bills are important for people to pay attention to because it's a way for the state government to control local communities, like you were just talking about, Michael. And it's a bad bill. It's a bad bill. I hate these state level mandates. So, this bill is being heard Tuesday in the Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee. What are your thoughts, Michael?
My first thought is it makes me think about Mayor Aaron Lamb in Keensburg. I am very concerned about what they're trying to impose on these smaller communities because a lot of these smaller communities do not appreciate a lot of what is going down at the Gold Dome. And I think this is a retaliatory response. You see a lot of, I mean, particularly you look at what's going on we brought up Keensburg. You've seen a lot. You've seen Keensburg. You've seen Monument. You've seen a lot of other places uh, enact certain um, policies and ordinances and resolutions to straight up refute a lot of policies that are coming from the Capitol, particularly when it comes to our gun rights. And I'm concerned. Excuse me. I'm concerned about where this could go for a lot of these smaller communities if a bill like this passes.
Oh, for sure. They have to have the commission has to have representatives from local government. So that sounds fine. State agencies, those are their polis appointees. And then you got to bring in the experts. Trust the experts here, affordable housing experts, climate environmental experts, and tourism experts. They're going to come in and they're going to come up with all these plans about creating this planning commission. But bad news, folks. It's a bad type of bill. This is the nature of government in and of itself, and this kind of stuff needs to be opposed. And House Bill 1198, bad one. So let's move on here, folks. I really wanted to bring up this one. This one is interesting. We've talked about it previously. What did get amended? This bill did get amended, so I wanted to make sure people were aware of the amendments on Senate Bill 143. This is in the House Education Committee on Wednesday, so we're on Wednesday now. Upon adjournment of the State House Committee Room 107, the first floor, Senate Bill 143 would extend the prohibition on school facial recognition. Now that sounds great. We could have asked Representative Armagost about this one because he's one of the prime sponsors on it. But I think it's a good thing. I don't think we should have facial recognition. These kids are basically forced to go to these schools. It's a government program. Where's this data going to go? It's part of this whole system they're building with digital IDs that I was talking about earlier, and all this data everywhere that the state is collecting on us. And then it's not going to be long before they're using facial recognition to buy a gun, I'm sure. So what's interesting though, looking at the amendments on this bill, so whenever you're looking, folks, here at the website and you read what the bill's about, there's the bill summary. The italicized is the new material added, as it says here at the bottom. So italicized is what's been amended in this bill. So kind of interesting, but I just want to briefly read this because we talked about it previously, and here are the changes to this bill. Quote, the bill prohibits processing the biometric identifiers obtained from the facial recognition services without consent. Now, I think that's interesting. So they're going to collect facial recognition. They're going to collect it, but they can't process it unless they get consent, which is an interesting nuance here. A school must provide notice of the use of facial recognition software. Well, I think that's good. Schools should be telling the parents, right? Each school district shall develop a policy governing the use of facial recognition technology, including clear guidelines on access and oversight. The policy must designate specific authorized personnel, such as school administrators and law enforcement officials who are permitted to process facial recognition data in response to an articulable and significant threat against the school. Whenever a school, employee of a school, or a contractor of a school engages in a practice that violates the bill, the aggrieved party may apply for a temporary restraining order or injunction or both. The court may enter orders or judgments as necessary to prevent the prohibited practice, to restore any person injured to their original position, or to prevent any unjust enrichment by any person through the use or employment of the violation. So it's interesting. The bill, like you read the title, you're like extend prohibition on school facial technology. Good. That means they're not going to have facial recognition technology, if I can talk, here at these schools. But no, that's not the reality of it. The bill's going to just change things to say, well, they got to get permission to process it. Now, of course, that can be changed, but the camel's nose is already under the tent, folks. Now, Michael, I know you're a parent. I know there's a lot of parents out there really concerned about what's going on in our government schools. You see Jefferson County in the news every week. We see so many horrific stories where people in positions of trust are abusing children, lying to parents, and creating unsafe situations. And now we have, they're going to be using facial recognition technology. What are your thoughts, Michael? I'd love to hear what you have to say, especially as a parent.
I'm very concerned about this one. I mean, thank God. I mean, I live in Jefferson County. You talk about Jeffco schools being in the news every week. It's so bad. I pulled we never have had our kid go to Jefferson County public schools. We had him over at a private school for as long as we could afford it, and now we're homeschooling just because we got priced out essentially. Just it's hard to live in Colorado. And a lot of other families are in that same exact boat, and some of them can't. So I'm very concerned about those some of those families who can't even um, manipulate their work life schedule so that way they could they could homeschool their kids in Jefferson County. Um, that's where my heart is right now for these people because what are they going to do? They're going to have their kids go to school where they're going to be dealing with this facial recognition technology. I mean, granted, they can't quote unquote process it, um, but still, that's definitely a concern. The other thing I'm also concerned about is you can see here at the very top, in current law, there is no prohibition on schools for contracting for facial recognitions. That is set to repeal on July 1st. So I'm also concerned that if this doesn't pass, it's just going to be there's going to be no prohibition on this technology whatsoever. So I kind of feel like we're forced into supporting this. And that's what's also concerning me. It's a terror, but I also don't like the bill. So the only thing worse than this bill is letting the prohibition expire completely. Then we're left with nothing. And
It's a great
that's
point.
so yeah, it feels like a bit of a Faustian bargain. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
It's a great point. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Michael, but
You're
100%.
good.
And Emily in the comments makes the same point here. The facial recognition is already in use. This bill gives it guardrails. Unless they build a ban it, it's already being in use, so better to have some regulation on it. Good point. 100% agree. Emily also says she is against the facial recognition, but since it's law, why not regulate it or tighten it up a little bit? Definitely agree there. Megan Scholes in the comments says this is a bad bill. They're trying to use facial recognition on our kids to access behavior and potential threats for sure. You know, like China's Skynet system, says Robert. So yeah, good comments there. Completely agree with everybody there. This is an issue that, I think could be a bipartisan issue that parents and people could get behind. This is the kind of issue, folks, I think that like the liberty community could pick an issue like this on a year and really try and focus on something like this. It's an issue that's not getting a lot of press, not getting a lot of interest, but it's something that could definitely be changed. And maybe getting rid of facial recognition in schools altogether could be a goal of the liberty movement in the coming years, especially if we get some good legislators elected. So great points all around. Really love this discussion. The comments are great. Really happy that we have this. And Michael, just got to applaud you 100% for being able to homeschool your children. That's an amazing thing, and I'm really happy that you're able to do it.
I appreciate that. It's not easy to do. Um, Especially when you live in Colorado and you've got to pay the bills, and it's not like my wife can sit around and just homeschool them all day. She has to work too. I mean, she's working remote and just got a brand new job and they're working with her for now, but I don't know how long we're going to be able to homeschool either, because I mean, we love it. My kid loves it. My wife loves it, but we got to feed her family. We got a family to feed, and um you can't eat for free, and you definitely can't live off the government. So we got to do what we can, and we'll see how long it lasts.
100%. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch, right?
That's for sure.
Um, So look at this, folks. Now, we've mentioned it briefly before, but it's in committee this week, and I just got to bring it up again. This is Wednesday, March 26th. This is all this week, folks. House Committee Room, or Senate Committee Room, excuse me, Senate Committee Room 352 in the Senate Transportation Energy Committee. So that's on the third floor there. The little idea to label gas-fueled stoves, right? Because people don't understand. People are too stupid to understand the potential dangers of using natural gas in your house. So, thankfully, and I'm trying to be as sarcastic as I can here, folks. Thankfully, we have Alex Valdez and Kathy Kipp. These two beneficent people here are going to help us save so many lives by forcing retailers to affix an adhesive label to the stove with the phrase, quote, "This appliance should be ventilated to the exterior when in use." End quote. How many lives are they going to save? These wonderful people. Let's nominate them for the Nobel Peace Prize here. This is so dumb because not only, we've all seen the stories over years. I've worked in retail, and there's always the California compliance stuff. It's like, oh, California has to have its special restrictions, or this is approved for sale in California. You see that everywhere, right? You buy anything online, and there's usually something in there. So here we go. Here's in Colorado now. We're going to have specific to Colorado regulations for approved for sale in Colorado. It's got the sticker. It's got the sticker on it. And if you violate that, you are committing a deceptive trade practice. I mean, how stupid is this, folks? I mean, come on. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I just think it's laughable. I mean, I was really hoping this thing wasn't going to pass the first time, because first committee the first time around, because of how ridiculous this bill is. And yet, not only did it pass, but it also got a sponsor, Kathy Kipp of all people. But if there's anybody as ridiculous enough to sponsor something like this in the Senate, it's Kathy Kipp. So I'm really hoping, but at this point in time, I don't know if anybody is actually gonna use common sense and shut this bill down, just because of the makeup of the House legislature, or the Senate legislature at this point in time. Um, but if there is a chance, I'm really hoping the Senate can do it, just because this is a massive waste of time. I guess, that being said, is it better for them to be complaining about our gun rights or complaining about this, if we can use this to make them waste more time, so we can, tick down that clock a little bit on their 120 days to screw us over? So be it. But this is just a ridiculous bill, and it's almost a slap in the face to Colorado that this thing was even introduced.
100%. Couldn't agree with you more. I love these comments in the chat. Somebody says, nanny state, horse crap. Somebody says, or Finest City Cycling says, that Kathy Kipp is a colonizer from Berkeley, so of course it makes sense. We have like Donna Walter says the tags on your hair dryer says do not use in the tub. Robert says yeah, they have the sticker on the toaster that says don't use your toaster in the bathtub. It's basically it. And in a way, if anybody's an Ayn Rand fan out there, maybe we need a little bit more survival of the fittest in society. And hey, if people are using their toaster in there, or they're using a gas fueled stove without ventilation and they do it on their own, so be it. Let the chips fall where they may. At some point, and for one, this little sticker is not going to do anything. It is the dumbest virtue signaling type of stuff ever. Let's move on. It's just so dumb. You have to bring it up, folks. This is your government. These people are not to be taken seriously, but unfortunately, they wield deadly power. This one is interesting here. I wanted to bring it up because it's got this wonderful sounding name. I mean, this is that perfect example, right? Here's House Bill 1234, Utility Consumer Protection. Like, wow, utility consumer protection. That sounds like a good bill. These wonderful legislators are protecting the community. And these legislators are going to show up at their town halls. Nikita Ricks, Junie Joseph, Faith Winter say, oh, I sponsored a bill for consumer protection. I'm protecting the consumers. Now, check this out, folks. Whenever you see this on the legislative website, the bill's been amended. So here's what the bill originally said. The bill said all these things that's all been crossed out. The bill doesn't say any of this anymore. Doesn't deal with any of this BS. Guess what this bill does? Check this out. You'll never believe it. Well, yes, you will. The bill prohibits the Department of Human Services from requiring an applicant for the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program to provide their citizenship or immigration status on an application for assistance under the program, unless that information is required as a condition of eligibility. So there you go. The department will also be prohibited from sharing information related to the citizenship or immigration status. So that's how it goes, folks, down in the the legislature there in Denver. Utility consumer protection. What this bill actually does is it protects people who are in the country illegally from having to report their immigration status on an energy rebate form. I mean, you can't make it up, Michael. What do you think?
Oh, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I feel like I'm shocked, but I also shouldn't be shocked at this point because of how absurd these people are. Like you said, Faith Winter, who went drinking and driving down to a city council meeting. Junie Joseph, she's not that. She's just another progressive. And then Nikita Ricks, she's the same lady who has this asinine um, uh, consumer protection bill for security deposits that's going to actually hurt landlords and make it more difficult for people to um, uh, be a landlord, particularly, and it's gonna hurt mom and pops who own a second house the most. And this is also going to this is just a massive waste of time. It's a big virtue signal, and if this is something that they're gonna also waste our time on, so they're not doing something even more dangerous during their 120 days, then so be it. But this should have never been introduced, and great. Luckily, what it originally was is no longer what it is now, but the whole fact that they amended this to be something completely different just to get it to pass is absolutely absurd. They should have killed this bill cleanly right during committee.
Yeah, great point there, right? Because this bill was going to prohibit people's utility services from being disconnected under all these different qualifications. And it just shows it was probably unrealistic. It didn't make sense. Utility companies are like, are you kidding me? We're not, people just can have their utilities without us being able to shut it off, but they don't even have to pay for all of these different exceptions. And how much time are we going to have to spend going through all of this? So it was impractical, didn't make sense. So like, well, okay, let's just make the bill about immigration then. Let's just make the bill to protect illegal immigrants. That's the backup plan. With this utility consumer protection. I mean, it's so funny. It's so ridiculous. But yeah, that folks, this is the quality of the legislators we have. They're not the brightest people in our state. They're the brightest people in our state actually have real jobs. So let's move on here.
Yes.
had to bring that up because it's just I was reading it and it was just so crazy. Okay, Senate Education Committee on Wednesday, March 26, 1:30 p.m. Senate Committee Room 357. Two interesting bills. We've talked about this before, but wanted to bring it up because I know we have some friends, Val out there if you're watching, absolutely up in arms about this bill. If you hadn't heard about House Bill 1006, this bill would allow a school district to lease district property for any term of years for the purpose of a solar field, an energy storage system, or affordable housing. Oh, one of those things isn't like the other, is it? Here's the amendments. If a board of education or a school district leases or rents property for the purposes of an affordable housing project, the board of education shall develop a policy that defines affordable housing for this project. So all your taxpayer money, your property tax money that went to building these school property and school district land and development over the years, well, now they're going to turn to affordable housing so they can fill up your community with, teachers on the dole potentially. All these government employees can live in these little houses on your school land, or they'll put a solar garden. I mean, it's not the proper role of government. It's a total teachers unions bill. The teachers unions support it. Bad bill all around, but just had to bring this one up again because I know people have been following it. Unfortunately, it did make its way all through the House with that small amendment there and is now in the Senate Education Committee. But this is a bill that I think with enough outcry, people can actually have an impact on. So being heard Wednesday in the Senate Education Committee at 1:30 p.m. So I want to make sure people were aware of it. Any thought, Michael?
Uh, I think you pretty much covered it. It's a massive waste of time. It's not the proper role of government.
100%. So also in the Senate Education Committee. Now, this is a controversial bill for a lot of reasons. I saw some interesting comments on both sides of it, so I'd love to get what people think. House Bill 1135, the communication devices in schools. So here we go. Here's a bipartisan bill to basically require on or before July 1st, 2026, the Colorado School for the Deaf and the Blind and each institute charter school, district charter school, and a local board of education for its schools that are not district charter schools to adopt and implement a policy concerning student communication device possession and use during the school day. At a minimum, the policy must describe the prohibitions, if any, and exceptions, if any, regarding student communication device possession and use during the school day. So I know our schools are so bad that maybe it's a good idea to have cell phones for some of these kids, especially some of these high schoolers, where you have predatory teachers trying to convince you to declare yourself homeless so you can move in with them. So maybe it's not a bad thing to have people recording devices and having kids being able to call their parents in the event of an emergency or a situation at schools. So this bill really just says that all school districts, including charter schools, have to develop a policy. Doesn't necessarily say what that policy should be. But kind of almost a nothing burger, but in that way. And then it's just saying, well, each school district has to come up with the policy. But then how soon next year we'll probably see a bill where it says, well, yeah, but all the policies have to follow the state requirement. So who knows? But what do you think about this, Michael? With school age children, what do you think about this idea in general?
I don't like it. I don't think that I don't think that this is something that needs to be forced upon uh all the school districts by the state. I think this is something that should be handled on a local level, and that would be best suited for each school district to decide on their own.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting topic. Cell phones in schools is going to continue to be a major topic. And of course, our state government thinks that they are going to have the solution. So let's move on here to Thursday, folks. So we're almost through the week here. A couple interesting bills we wanted to make you aware of. The bills you may not have heard about on the news, but bills you can have an input on. You can testify in committee on these bills this week. So in the House Finance Committee, that's on the first floor, House Committee Room 112, is House Bill 1269, the Building Decarbonization Measures. So you can just tell right off the bat that this is another one of those bills for this whole green agenda, which is causing a lot of people to make a lot of money and impoverishing the rest of us. That's really the whole idea. The Green New Deal, the green agenda, it's all about money, folks. That's the green they're talking about. So this bill would update the energy use benchmarking and performance standard requirements for owners of certain buildings. So I don't know if people saw some of the news recently, but Denver has been the worst. There's so much vacant commercial property in Denver because these property owners have so many ridiculous mandates to get rid of carbon emissions that either they can't meet them or the rents are going up, and it's just creating a horrible situation where you have all these buildings totally being under all these strict requirements here. So this bill does a lot. I don't necessarily want to read it all, but of course, this bill will create an enterprise. If you don't know, an enterprise is this government run business that they use to raise money without having to call it a tax. They call it a fee instead. But this building decarbonization enterprise will provide financial assistance, technical assistance, and other programmatic assistance to covered building owners to effectively and efficiently implement building decarbonization measures. So there you go. The enterprise is authorized to impose and collect from covered building owners an annual building decarbonization fee. So imagine this: you own a commercial office building. Now you're going to be paying a building decarbonization fee to cover the enterprise's costs and providing financial, technical, and assistance. I mean, total ridiculous. And this whole idea is like it is communism, folks. It is socialism. Everybody's got to pay in, and we're going to decide who gets this money. You just got to help everybody out. You pay into this. Sure, it only costs you $400 each, but that's $2 million, $2 million in this next budget year. They'd be pulling out of our state economy, almost 3 million after that, 3.5 million years to come. So they're going to be pulling millions and millions of dollars out of the state economy for this ridiculous thing to make by making everybody pay this $400 fee. I mean, how many feet, how many people is that, or how many buildings is that? If $400 adds up to 2 million, that's a lot, folks. That's a lot of people who are going to be having to pay this. And of course, it's going to make owning property here in Colorado even more expensive. So this decarbonization fee is just another example of this horrible green agenda. What do you think about this, Michael?
They're nickel and diming away our economy into their hands, which is ironic because the more and more fees you put on an economy, the less economy there's a smaller pie for them to pull their percentages from, and then in turn they're going to say, "Oh no, we need more money. We need to tax people even more." So it's going to become an even bigger struggle just to maintain those revenues that the government demands and requires. So they're creating a doom cycle that's going because of all these fees that they're nickel and diming us with. On top of that, if you've got to pay more and more money as a commercial landlord, you're going to have to in turn give all that money. You're going to have to charge more money to your tenants, which are going to be commercial tenants, and those are going to be businesses who are going to, instead of being able to give that money to the people, to the people that they employ, they have to give it to the landlord, who's going to in turn not keep it for themselves, give it back over to the state. So they're creating a doom cycle that's bad for the economy all around, and I'm very concerned about this.
100%. And there's that millions of dollars in costs pulled out of the economy to go to this enterprise. But also, look at this. It's going to require 400 hours of legal services per year for rulemaking, ongoing general counsel, $133 an hour, of course, for those legal services, and then $75,000 in planning costs. And then all this extra stuff they have to come up with to create this whole new business where they're going to have 1.5 employees, full-time employees working on this, and just create this massive government enterprise for the purpose of decarbonizing, whatever that even means, basically getting down those carbon emissions. And they're going to do energy audits. They're going to have to hire consultants. They're going to pay off their little buddies who are involved in this industry. And of course, the rest of us have to pay. So yeah, bad news, folks. This is the kind of stuff you don't hear about on the news, but nonetheless is indicative of this uh this bad situation we're in, where you have this socialistic type of control over society. And yes, we need a new government enterprise. And let's keep moving on here. Big one we really want to talk about, one of the coming up here, but this one first, modifications to campaign finance requirements. Now, Weissman's the only one on this bill. This is being heard Thursday in Senate Committee Room 352, the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. Um, so interesting bill, two really interesting bills I wanted to bring up for that committee this Thursday, just to keep you informed out there, people. I know a lot of people who watch this are very politically motivated. They want to get involved in campaigns, maybe run for office yourself, maybe be a consultant on a political campaign. So Senate Bill 148 is something for you to keep an eye on. Don't want to spend too much time on it, but it does change how fundraising works, how lobbyists can pay, new recording or reporting requirements, new requirements for who's paying for different political advertisements. I mean, this thing is a laundry list. I'm really curious as to where Weissman got this from. Look how long this is, but it's a ton of stuff. Weissman's the only one on the bill, which I thought was interesting. He's been around the block, was in the House, served full 8 years there, now is in the Senate. So a very well-connected guy. Really won a hard-fought primary this last year, but this bill does quite a bit. We'll see how far it makes it, but I at least wanted to get people aware of it, because I know there's a lot of people watching this who are politically involved. So just keep an eye out on this one. Don't necessarily want to get too much into it, but any thoughts on this one, Michael?
I don't really have too many thoughts on this one. Other than I think it's good news that Weissman is the only sponsor on this one, and there's a good chance that tells me that there's a good chance this isn't really going to go anywhere. but we need to watch out for it for next year.
Yeah, interesting stuff. In that same committee, Senate Committee Concurrent Resolution 001. So they want to basically create a ballot measure. And this is the kind of thing that, we have some Republicans on there. Senator Mark Baisley is traditionally one of our Liberty leaders down there. Dusty Johnson's a freshman. She's now, don't get me wrong, I believe she's been involved before, so she should know more about this. But they want to amend the state constitution to create a property tax exemption for emergency first responders. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, this would decrease taxes for some people, which is a good thing. It would decrease government revenue, which is a good thing. But here's a special carve out basically to say if you're a first responder, then you should be able to, if you're a firefighter, you get a special privilege in society. You're, I don't know, paramedic, firefighter, police officer, whatever, then yeah, you can get some benefits that other people don't get. So, I get it. It's a lot of it if they served for 30 years or were 1 year and died or critically injured. Don't get me wrong, these people deserve support. They're putting their lives on the line for the community. But I don't know about this idea of special carve outs to cut their taxes while the rest of us have to keep paying. Um, I don't know. What do you think, Michael?
No, I agree. I don't like playing favorites. I like to. That being said, I do like to see less taxes going to the government. So I mean, I still want to know more. I don't think this is really going to go anywhere. That being said, but and yeah, it really does bother me that they're trying to play favorites with certain people and not others. I mean, I'd love to see. I think we're all kind of struggling, and it'd be nice to lower taxes for everybody.
100%, 100%. So wanted to bring that one up to people because it is interesting. Now this is what I think is one of the worst bills we've seen this week. So Thursday in the House Business Affairs and Labor Committee at 1:30 p.m. House Committee Room 112 is to regulate private security officers and agencies. So House Bill 1262, Wiseman and Mabray, two of the most authoritarian legislators we have down there. They basically want to create a new state board of private security services in DORA, the Department of Regulatory Agencies, to regulate individuals and businesses that provide security services. So not only are they taking guns away from just the average Joe, the average citizen, but then, of course, if you want to have licensed armed security or armed security in general, they have to be licensed, they have to be registered, they have to get the permission of the government to operate. I don't like the idea that the government has to give permission for anything, but especially to people who are providing security. If I want to hire somebody to provide security for me, I should be able to without them having to be registered with the state government, and the government can decide who is allowed to offer security services or not. So totally egregious, totally horrible bill. This is one, folks, that you should be paying attention to. House Bill 1262, bad bill. What do you think, Michael?
I agree. It's a terrible bill, unnecessary regulations that's going to make it tougher for places that need to be secure to get that necessary security.
100% horrible bill, like you say, Emily Rose. Another path for criminals and less safety, right? Because the criminals are already not following these rules. They're not going to. They're not going to go get their permit to become a security officer before they commit any crime. So absolutely ridiculous. So interesting bill there, folks. But let's move on here. Another one, of course, like Representative Armagost was saying, they're giving tenants all these benefits and hurting, of course, the landlords. That's their big deal. So this is Rick's bill that you had brought up earlier, Michael. The tenant security deposit protections. What do you want to tell us about this?
I mean, basically, they're gonna highly limit the amount of money that you can require as a security deposit. They're also going to limit certain things that you are going to be able to, as a landlord, charge for. So, very concerned about what's going to be happening over. I'm concerned about this one. The good news is you still don't see a prime sponsor from the Senate. So that is a win for us so far. So let's hope that if this one does get heard, there still is no Senate sponsor. And that might be a very good sign that this bill gets killed this year.
Yeah, good point there. It's ridiculous, of course. I mean, so basically, folks, this bill, just if you hadn't heard, they want to create a maximum that a security deposit can be. Your security deposit can't be more than one monthly rent payment. And then, of course, there's all the other hoops that landlords have to jump through. Landlords have to do all of these things. Look how long this bill is, this summary here. Oh my gosh. Landlords, of course, have to be micromanaged by the state. They have to protect renters. They're just making it harder, increasing the cost, making it more difficult for people to be landlords, creating our furthering our housing crisis. So bad news there, folks. Really bad bill. Last bill we want to talk about that's being heard in committee this week, and then we're going to get into some of the important bills of the week. This is in the Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee, Thursday, March 27th, 1:30 p.m., Senate Committee Room 352. We've mentioned this one previously, but I wanted to bring it up because now it's over in the Senate to limit turf in new residential development. So we've seen this play out over the last few years where they're really trying to go after artificial turf to grass. So they don't want people to have grass lawns because they're running out of water. The state is, of course, in dire water situations, but of course, it has not stopped the state legislature and the governor from pushing high density housing mandates on local communities across Colorado. Their little idea of big high density housing around mass transit corridors, this and that. But guess what? If you're building a new apartment building, they don't want you to have a non functional lawn. They want to make it illegal for somebody basically to plant their grass there. And this bill has been amended quite a bit, but it really does apply to multifamily residents. But does a lot of things there. But just want to bring it up to people because we're going to see more and more of this stuff, especially as the water issue continues. Our state government's going to go after people's ability to have lawns, and I mean that's what House Bill 113 does. So, bad news, folks. Really bad news there. What do you think, Michael?
No, I completely agree. I mean, I think you said it best. This is going to be a part of a legislative creep where they're going to eventually turn around to once if they get this to pass, they're going to nickel and dime your rights away for what you're able to grow on your property. Eventually this is going to turn into, oh, we don't have any water. You can't grow a garden. You can't grow this plant. You can't grow that plant. You can't grow this flower. You can't grow what you want to grow on your own property. It's just a matter of time before, if we don't kill this bill now, it's gonna turn into a much uglier thing down the road.
100%. So bad bill, House Bill 113, another example of the state government really trying to limit our ability to grow things, which is, of course, a disaster. Now, folks, don't go anywhere. We still have an important update. We finish this live stream off every week. We're going to go through some of the most important bills that we've identified going through the legislature this year and giving you an update. Now, a lot of these good bills, of course, have been killed, but we're going to let you know. Maybe you've been curious about some of these bills. We're going to bring them up here. So, you ready for this, Michael? We're going to have a little lightning round here.
Let's go.
All right. We talked about House Bill 1005, the $34 million tax subsidy for Sundance Film Festivals being heard Tuesday. We won't talk about that again. Now, House Bill 1010, prohibiting price gouging on sales of necessities. Absolutely horrible bill. That's going to be heard next in the Senate Business, Labor, and Technology Committee on April 1st. So we will bring that one up next week. But just a horrible bill. So giving you an update on these ones, folks. House Bill 1031, the law enforcement whistleblower protection, we brought up, being heard this Tuesday in the House Judiciary Committee. House Bill 1040, that was the adding nuclear energy as clean energy. Probably one of the best bills, the only good bill we've probably seen pass this year. And that did pass the House and the Senate. As of earlier today, the governor had not signed it yet. Now, the governor can just let it sit on his desk for, I think it's about 2 weeks or so, and it automatically becomes law. And it might be more than 2 weeks. I apologize. I just don't remember. But it's several weeks, could be 2 months. I remember something like that. But the governor will probably let this one become law. He'll probably sign it because then he looks like he's the guy who supports nuclear energy. I talked about Ken DeGraff's great bill, House Bill 1067, the Criminal Asset Forfeiture Act, being heard this Tuesday in Judiciary. Really encourage everybody to reach out to the Judiciary Committee members, if I can talk, and tell them to support House Bill 1067. It's a great bill, one of the most pro-liberty bills we've seen. Senate Bill 20, the tenant and landlord law enforcement, is still going through the process there. It's in appropriations. Senate Bill 003, of course, everybody knows this Monday on the House floor. It's being heard, so people get up in arms about that. Senate Bill 86, the protections for users of social media. Horrible, horrible bill. Really wanted to bring this one up. This is one of the worst bills we've seen this year. So unfortunate that we have Republicans like Representative Hartsook and Senator Frizzell helping to create this new social media regulation bill where the social media companies have to report to the state. So we talked about a different one earlier. This bill's already made it through the Senate and is now in the House. So bad news, folks. Bad news. Senate Bill 86 is on its way to becoming law. Now, Polis did say he'd veto it, but they did make some amendments to the bill, probably to try and make it a little easier for him to pass. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Senate Bill 86, bad bill. Please reach out to your House members on that one. Senate Bill 33. This is a disappointing bill from Representative Weinberg to basically create a new prohibition to prevent drugstores from getting liquor licenses. They're trying to protect the small mom and pop liquor stores. I get it. But at the same time, Senate Bill 33 is a prohibition. Coloradans want to be able to buy their alcohol wherever they want to buy it. We don't need the government trying to artificially restrict the market now that they don't like how things are going. This is being heard this Tuesday in the House Appropriations Committee, or maybe Senate Appropriations Committee. Don't know. Senate Bill 79. This is the Bitcoin Vending Machine Act. Just wanted to bring this up because I know there's a lot of crypto people watching. So Senate Bill 79 being heard Monday, April 7th in the House Finance Committee. Senate Bill 77, absolutely horrible bill, also being heard tomorrow. So, folks, I know everybody's going to be watching about Senate Bill 3, but also pay attention to Senate Bill 77. Also going through the House tomorrow. We really need all the Republicans to vote against this one and hopefully some Democrats as well. Now, unfortunately, we have Representative Soper sponsoring this bill. This bill makes it harder and more expensive for us to have access to government records. It modifies CORA, the Colorado Open Records Act, and gives a special carve out for mass media, meaning Kyle Clark and others will have special privileges that you and I do not enjoy. They'll be able to get their core requests earlier. They'll be prioritized, where general public will not be. Senate Bill 77 is an absolute disaster and an attack on transparency in government. Senate Bill 72, when I was giving a real hard time to Senator Pelton about and regulation of kratom, it did pass the Finance Committee in the Senate and is on appropriations. It's been stalled there for a while. Let's hope it gets killed. I would really love to see Senate Bill 72 fail. House Bill 1006, we did talk about that, passed the House and the Senate. Education this coming Wednesday. House Bill 1133, requirements for sale of firearms ammunition, being heard Monday on the Senate floor. So this is another big one people need to pay attention to on the Senate floor as a whole. House Bill 1133 to ban under 21-year-olds from buying ammunition is going to be heard in the Senate. So while you're reaching out to your House members, reach out to your senator. We need the Senate to kill House Bill 1133 to stop this ammunition prohibition bill. People, do not let this one slip by. Please reach out to your state senator. They're going to be voting on this tomorrow in the Senate floor. House Bill 1127, a decent bill to allow us to have more military surplus vehicle access in Colorado. I like that idea. It did pass two committees in the House and is onto the House Appropriations Committee. Didn't make it anywhere there yet. It's still stalled out there. House Bill 1093, the limitations on local anti-growth land use policies. I was really upset about this one. It did pass the Senate, pass the House. The governor has it, but basically they're trying to force local governments from resisting the state's requirements for growth. So at the same time, they're restricting our ability to have grass. They're saying, nope, but your local community can't restrict growth. We need more growth, more growth, more growth. So there you go. House Bill 1093, horrible bill. I'm sure Polis is going to sign it for sure. We just talked about the limiting turf, 1113, being heard this Thursday. House Bill 1100. So there's been a major issue with vacancy committees. We just had another vacancy appointment this last week. And Representative Luck has some ideas about reforming the vacancy committee process. So her bill to expand the pool of people who would be voting in vacancy committees, a good bill, has been stalled out. It's been introduced in the House back in January and then has never made it to a committee yet. So it's interesting to see where that's going to go. But we know there's bipartisan support for doing some reform over vacancy committees. Everybody supports that. It's just what's that going to look like is the big question. House Bill 1247, the new sales tax for local communities for paying for affordable housing in rural mountain communities and tourist communities, will be heard on Wednesday, April 2nd, in the Local Government Housing Committee at Senate Committee Room 357. House Bill 1239, the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act, of course, another way to go after small business owners, being heard Tuesday in the Appropriations Committee there. The gun show bill also being heard on the Senate floor. So House Bill 1238, gun show requirements, making it really expensive and really ridiculous regulations on gun shows in Colorado. Absolutely horrible bill being heard on Monday on the Senate floor as well. So folks, there's three anti-gun bills being heard tomorrow, two in the Senate, one in the House. So pay attention to that. Please reach out to your senator, tell them to oppose 1238. House Bill 1203, misbranding cultivated meat products as meat. So trying to create some labeling requirements for lab grown meat. is going to be heard actually this Tuesday on the Senate floor. So it made it all the way through the House, made it through Senate committee. I think it has been amended and will be on the Senate floor. So interesting bill. We're going to see that one pass, which is interesting. Interesting bill I like, House Bill 1175. People who opted out of getting a smart meter makes this some requirements for the energy provider to have to get you to opt in for a smart meter installed. It did pass the House this last week and is now on to the Senate. So I'll keep an eye on that one. They did amend it. It's not as strong as it was, but nonetheless, I still support it. House Bill 1209 is a really interesting bill. It's a marijuana regulation streamline. It does a lot. This definitely is not a single subject bill. It does a lot with marijuana, legal marijuana in Colorado. One of the things from a pro-liberty perspective that I think we all like is that it would expand the purchase limit from 1 ounce to 2 ounces at a specific time. So people would have to spend less time on the roads, less time shopping. They can buy more at once, stock up while they're there, while sales going on. So definitely like House Bill 1209 on that level. There's so many other regulations. Just reading through the bill, there's some good stuff in there about eliminating some requirements and restrictions and the need for extra background checks and this and that. So hopefully they're starting to loosen up the marijuana regulations. I think that's a good thing. House Bill 131, reducing the cost of housing. That's Senator Lundin's bill, the minority leader on the Senate side. His bill is introduced back in February and hasn't made it to even a committee hearing yet. So very interesting there. See what he's going to be doing with that. House Bill 1243. I love this one. I know there's some controversy about this, but it would stop a police officer from asking you, why do you know why I pulled you over? Instead, it would force these police officers to tell you why they pulled you over. I think that's a good thing personally. House Bill 1243 is assigned to the House Judiciary. It's been stalled out, been delayed. There's been so much criticism of it from the law enforcement community and from others that we'll see when it actually gets assigned to a committee hearing. They've had it assigned and then they took it off the calendar. So that one's still going through the process at the higher levels. I talked about these. This one, at least 1262, the regulating private security officers, bad bill being heard this Thursday. House Bill 1291, this is one we're definitely going to be talking about next week. This is to overhaul these transportation network companies, so your Uber, your Lyft, all these DoorDash companies. It's going to totally create extremely excessive regulations and requirements for them to operate in Colorado, including either having some sort of facial recognition software or some way where people can validate who they are to use the rideshare, this and that. It's bad news. That one's going to be stretched out. There's going to be a lot of industry opposition. There's going to be a lot of controversy on that one, but it's getting its first committee hearing if things remain the same on April 3rd. The union bill that would eliminate the second vote for a closed shop in Colorado, Senate Bill 5, absolutely horrible bill. We're going to see the reverberations of this bill if it passes with multiple ballot measures, big fights over the labor and business community on this one. It did passed the Senate. It passed the same day that Senate Bill 3 passed, and then it's now in the House. So it's going to be on the House Committee on Business Affairs and Labor. They passed it. Now it's over to appropriations. So it's going through the House process, probably going to pass. We'll see what amendments get added to it. But there we go. Michael, you want to read through some of the here? Now we're on to the dead bills, the killed bills. So these are bills, good or bad, that have died this year. Do you want to go ahead and read through these real quick?
Absolutely. Soft closing of alcohol beverages, beverage establishments concerning allowing licensed persons licensed to sell alcohol beverages, certain alcohol beverages until 2:30 a.m. for consumption on premises until 3 a.m. That was killed. Reducing costs of state regulation, concerning reducing costs of regulation, Colorado, that was also killed. Healthcare provider right to exercise conscience concerning protecting a healthcare provider's right to exercise their conscience in providing healthcare, also killed. Unfortunate to see another Stephanie Luck bill killed. She's another one of our fantastic liberty leaders down there at the Gold Dome. Parental consent to treatment of a minor. That was another excellent bill by Representative Scott Bottoms that was killed. Expanding the Colorado College Food Acts. That was also known as the Tamale Act by Rep. Gonzalez, which was killed. Liability when means of self-defense prohibited. That was killed as well. Unfortunately, another Stephanie Luck bill that was killed. County mail ballot signature verification requirements. A good bill that was supposed to shore up a lot of our election integrity issues. That was unfortunately killed. Gift card and retail property crime penalties. That one was killed as well. That was a Rep. Brandy Bradley bill that was killed by the Democrats. Reduced premium cigar excise tax rate. That was good old Stompin' Tom Sullivan. He doesn't take the opportunity to stomp on his own. He never misses an opportunity to stomp on his own son's grave. It's really disgusting. He had a decent bill, but it's his own little pet project because he loves his cigars. That's killed. Repeal firearm dealer requirements and state permit. This was a repeal of the state permitting process for FFLs in Colorado. That was unfortunately killed as well. Change confinement egg laying hens. That was killed. That was a bill that Rep. Gonzalez and Barb Kirkmeyer uh, introduced. Unfortunately, that never made it past the Ag Committee in the House. Repeal recycled paper carry out bag fee. That was killed as well. That was a and that one was a step in the right direction with our current bag fees, because as you know, you want to buy it if you need a bag in Colorado, it's another 10 cents regardless. Insect production, human consumption, that was another Scott Bottoms bill that's dead. Open source software and voting systems. That was unfortunately killed as well. That would have been another good pro liberty and election integrity bill that is no longer around. Local funding for vulnerable road user protection bill. This will probably be back in another form. Thankfully, this one was killed, but we need to watch out and be ready to fight whenever that comes back. Trafficking minor for abortion or transgender care. Another fantastic bill by the hopefully soon to be Governor Bottoms. That bill was also killed as well. Disclosing information to immigration authorities. That bill was killed, but we were hearing that the Democrats might have their own version of this. Unfortunately, we don't think that's going to have any teeth. Repeal retail delivery fees. That was a fantastic bill that was unfortunately killed. Remove precipitation collection limitations. That was unfortunately killed. That was a good one by Sukla. Uh, Enforcement of federal immigration law. That was killed as well. Government transparency laws by Garcia Sander and Senator Pelton. That was a good Senator Pelton bill. Unfortunately, that one was killed in the kill committee. Non-citizen voter registration cancellation. That was also killed. Protections against child rape. We had Rep. Bradley on. She discussed that for a little while. I believe that was about a month ago. That was unfortunately killed. Intoxicating substances and social equity businesses. This is a bill that we were grateful was killed. I was honestly shocked to see Senator Amabile was a bit of a gun grabber for coming from Boulder County. Glad to see that one die. The last one, this was, I believe we were calling this one the Fuera bill. This was going to limit a ton of fees, get rid of a ton of taxes on Coloradans, and it was unfortunately killed. Thank you to Senator Baisley for introducing this bill.
Yeah, 100%. And somebody in the chat there says, I'm noticing a trend. And that's exactly it, folks. All of these legislators, all of these bills would have basically made it so that they could it would lower our fees, lower the fees, lower the taxes, lower the burden on Coloradans, on hardworking Coloradans. But of course, all those bills die. All those bills fail because they don't care about reducing costs and helping hardworking families. Instead, they only care about their extreme agenda here. So what'd you think, Michael? It was a great live stream. Had a lot of fun. We had tons of viewers. We had up to 70 something people in the watching at once. It was really fun. Great information for Representative Armagost. But what are some of your closing thoughts here?
I thought it was exciting to talk to Rep. Armagost about the bill, hear his description of what happened, and I was excited to hear what he had to say for us going forward. So great tips going yeah, he had some really great tips on what to be talking about when you're testifying down there. I just want to remind everybody, we're going to get through this. This is only a stage, and this stage will pass also. 20 years ago we were very Republican. Right now we're a very Democratic state. It will stay Democratic if we don't fight. So let's keep on fighting. Democrats fought, they turned it, we can turn it back.
Well said, Michael. Yeah, 100%. Really appreciate everybody in the chat. It was awesome seeing so many of Liberty leaders, some big names, some people, a lot of good fighters there participating in the chat this week. It was so awesome. Thank you everybody for joining. Really appreciate everybody who goes to the Capitol, who testifies, who's involved in the process. So many people across the state are putting in so much work, and I'm so thankful and so grateful. And that's what gives me hope. You know, like you talked about, Michael, about being tired of the black pilling and all the negativity and how people are so frustrated. But I have so much hope when I see all these amazing people getting involved, speaking out, having a voice. There's so much good things happening. We're growing in a community of liberty here in Colorado, something so new, something growing, something different. And I really think we're going to win. It's just going to take a while. So just everybody out there is awesome. All the pro liberty people here in Colorado, keep up the good fight. You're an inspiration. Thank you so much to everybody and everything you do. We're not giving up. We'll be back next week. Every single week, we're going to talk about all the bills going through the legislature. We're going to interview some legislators and other people to give us some insight into what's happening. But use your voice, show up to committee hearings, show up, reach out, contact your state rep, your state senator, get involved, support them in their reelection if they're good. If they're bad, try and get them replaced. You know, get creative, have some good strategy, and don't give up. Keep on fighting, never surrender, and just appreciate it. Yeah. Any other thoughts, Michael?
No, I appreciate everything. Appreciate you, Brandon. Appreciate everybody who is here week after week after week. Thank you for staying with us, and you're a part of the fight, and the fight is going to be well worth it at the end of the day. So thank you.
Definitely. Hey, real quick, I was going through some of my old stuff here, boxes and stuff, and I found a 2008 Ron Paul bumper sticker. Gosh, if I could figure out how to get my finger. There was a 2008 Ron Paul bumper sticker I had tucked away from when he ran for president, and I just put that up. So I was pretty excited about that. That was a blast.
That's
So
awesome.
anyways, that's the thing that gets me a smile on my face. But hey, appreciate you, everybody. Thank you. Stay positive. We'll see you all soon, and best wishes.